Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, the channel where we are making a computer role-playing game using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I want to show you my now completed model for dealing with random encounters. I showed sort of half of it last week, but I've now completed it. And so I'll run through it quickly and then I'll also show you the code. So here we are at the starting screen. We get to choose our race. It creates a character and we can move quickly, which is the red arrows, or slowly, which is the white arrows. It doesn't matter which direction we're going in because I've set it up so that we'll have an encounter straight away, but in the actual game, of course, that probably wouldn't happen. But so if we set off quickly, we enter a settlement. I've added the system that I demonstrated a while ago for generating the appearance of monsters. So it says the denizens look like the offspring of humans and rabbits covered in green fur. And then we roll a virtual D20, a 20-sided dice, and add, in this case, our size attribute. We find that the monsters attack. Let's sort of do a few more with different characters just so we can see the different possibilities. And once again they attack. Let's try and get something else. We'll be a human this time. And the monsters are not sure what to make of us. And we can be humble, informal, formal, or haughty. Given the attributes that we have, perhaps we'll choose to be formal in this case. Maybe informal. We'll be informal. And so we roll and add our charisma, and this time the monsters allow us to pass through their territory and also offer to trade with us. And I'll do one more, and then I'll show you how the code for this works. They have the appearance of disembodied floating heads of snakes covered in wiry red hair. They attack us. Actually, sorry, I've been showing you the options when we move quickly, but I'll also show you some of the options when we move slowly, and the wider range of options that you have and the better options that you have. So, in this particular case, they have the appearance of the disembodied floating heads of horses. Thus far, these descriptions don't make any difference. They're just sort of for flavour. But you'll notice that this time we didn't have to roll anything to see if they attacked us or ran away. Because if you're approaching slowly, the idea is that you won't sort of blunder into the settlement. You'll have the choice of whether to enter the settlement. But you may, if you want to, go back the way you came. So you can always avoid an encounter if you're moving slowly. The disadvantage with moving slowly is that you use up lamp oil more quickly, and therefore you either can't visit as many places, or you run the risk of sort of running out. Trying to scare them away is just, it sends you to the same screen as if you'd stumbled in, so it'll make the same rolls. In this case, they're not scared because we rolled quite low and they attack us. But we can try to sneak through without being seen. That involves dexterity minus size, so wouldn't be a great idea for us because our size is quite a bit higher, a little bit higher than our dexterity. But if we tried it, as predicted, they spot us and attack us. We can also try these four options of approaching them in a humble, informal, formal, or haughty manner. We always get this option. If you've been moving slowly, you always have the option of approaching them, because the idea is that you saw the settlement before you got there. So also, you don't get the penalty which you get if you stumble in. Of course, the idea that I had was that if you accidentally stumble into the middle of a settlement, they're probably going to sort of think less of you than if you sort of approach them deliberately. So we may be more likely to sort of get a good result. But let's try a formal approach. And this time we rolled low and they attacked us. All right, so that doesn't cover every single option, but it should show you that there's a sort of range of options, and that hopefully there are some interesting choices to be made once the player understands how the system works. So I'll spend the rest of the video showing you the code. Let's get into Twine and go to that one so we can locate it, because I've a lot of sort of old systems that I've set up I've kind of just put to one side. I've kept them so it can be a bit hard to find the version that we're working on. But this is what the game looks like now, but most of this isn't relevant. It's only really this one, which is sort of where we start having an encounter. These two just generate the monster description, so I won't go into them because I've gone into that code in a previous video. And then the ones that sort of flow from here, so all of these ones here. It's a little bit complicated because there's lots of connections between things, but I'll show you roughly the way it works, and then we can go through individual pages. So this one will send you to either stumble or find. Stumble if you're moving quickly, and find if you're moving slowly. If you go to stumble, it will make a call to roll an ad. Roll an ad is the page where it governs rolling a die and adding the relevant attribute or attributes that we're using. So quite a lot of pages make use of this. So stumble can lead to the monsters running away. It can lead to us being attacked, or it can lead to us having the option to approach them and engage in negotiation with them. If they run away, we can either continue, which is a page that I haven't done anything on because I'm only dealing with just the encounter with the monster at the moment, and not even dealing with combat yet. That's probably one of the things I need to do next. So if the monsters are scared and run away, we can either just continue or we can loot, and then looting might result in us getting some goods for free, or it might result in them coming back and us ending up being wounded because they because they fight us, or both. We might get away and be wounded. Now, approach. This was 4 separate pages. That was not very elegant programming, so I have squashed those down into one. There used to be one page for humble, one page for formal, one page for informal, and one page for a haughty approach. But I've put those all together, and I'll show you how I've done that. So that's if we stumble in, and then if we find them, we can retreat, do nothing, go back the way we came, which is again a page that I haven't done anything on. We can try and scare them off, which just sends us to stumble. We just choose to treat it as if we'd stumbled in, and we can approach them in various ways. So I'll show you how approach works in detail, because that's the only sort of change, the only sort of significant change on the sort of level of code that I've done in between since the last video. So the way it works is that if we were moving slowly, we have all these options, one of which is, or four of which are, we can approach them with these different strategies, and they all lead to the page approach. But the difference is that it sets the variable AS, standing for approach strategy, to a different number, with 1 being humble, 2 being informal, 3 being formal, and 4 being haughty. And if we stumble in, and if we roll in a middling way, then we will get the same options. So let's look at this. So the first thing that happens is that some approaches have a specific penalty. If you approach humbly, you will lose will, and I've sort of already dealt with the code for that, so I'll just skip through that. But you lose a bit of will for being craven. If you approach formally, because that takes time, you will add time, and in fact you can run out of lamp oil, and that'll lose you the game. Although, of course, in practice, if you had low lamp oil, players will probably learn quite quickly not to engage in that particular strategy. But if they do, then they can die. If they're not killed, because if their lamp oil happens to be 0, it sets this variable to killed, just so that the program knows not to continue with the rest of the code, because it would make no sense if you were dead to roll and see what happened in the negotiation. So this is all within the assumption that U does not equal, which is what exclamation mark equals means, does not equal killed. So set Z equals SAS. If you watched the previous video, you would know that each of the 4 approaches uses a different attribute. So if you're humble, it would depend on your size. If you are formal, is intelligence, informal is charisma, and haughty is willpower. And instead of sort of doing that by hand, I've got an array at the beginning of the game. Let's go over here. The array S, which just has the attributes related to the given strategies. So we set Z to the relevant slot of the S array. We include roll and add. I've dealt with roll and add before, but Z is a string which gives the variable which we're adding. Then if we stumbled in, then SP would have been set to 1. Actually, I'll go back and I'll show you. Yeah. So we set SP to 1. So that stands for stumble penalty, I suppose. So if SP equals 1, then we apply a penalty of 4. And the way it works is that if we're trying strategy 1, higher results are worse. And if we're trying anything else, then lower results are worse. So we either add 1 to X, which is the result of the roll plus the attribute. We add 4 to it if it's strategy 1, and we take 4 away from it if it's anything else. And the reason that a high roll is bad in strategy 1 is the humble approach, and that depends on your size, and the sort of justification of what's happening in the fiction of the game is that you are saying, look, I'm just a small, humble creature unworthy of your notice, and you should just let me through, because surely there'd be no, I don't present any threat to you, and there'd be no honour in killing me, perhaps. And that all is deemed to work better the smaller your size is. If your size attribute is larger, they will think, well, actually you are a threat to us, and perhaps there is honour in killing you. So therefore, you want to get a low result, because you want to have a low attribute in the relevant attribute. Whereas with anything else, you want to have a high attribute. A charisma of 15 is going to serve you better than a charisma of 4 when you are trying to negotiate with monsters. That's what charisma is for, I suppose. So we apply this penalty if relevant. Math.min just means we set it to the smaller of whichever one of these it is. So set x equals math.min bracket x, 31 just means if x is over 31, just lower it to 31. And the reason we do that is because we're going to read the final result from this array, dr, obviously a two-dimensional array, one dimension being the strategy that we've chosen, and the other dimension being the total of the relevant attribute plus the roll of a 20-sided dice. And if 31 is just the point where the results are going to be the same forever, so 31 really means 31 or more, and that's why we reduce it to 31 if it's higher than 31. And I'll show you that, that array. So basically higher numbers are better results pretty much. You see that with strategy 1, which is the humble approach, it sort of starts with high results and then gets lower, but everything else starts with low results and then gets higher. And that, of course, makes sense given that for these strategies 2, 3, and 4, we want to roll high, and for strategy 1, we want to roll low, and we want to, for 2, 3, and 4, we want to roll high, and we want to have a high. We want the relevant attribute to be high, and for strategy 1, we want to roll low, and we want the relevant attribute to be low. You'll also notice that the numbers are mostly from 1 to 5, except with the haughty approach, instead of 4 and 5, you have 6 and 7, because, and I've just noticed that I've made a mistake there by putting 2 commas in, which I shouldn't have done. Instead of 4 and 5, you have 6 and 7, because a haughty approach is sort of suggesting that you're a person of great importance and they should be honoured to have your, to have your presence. And if they believe you, it's more likely that you're more likely to get low results. You're more likely to sort of enrage them, or they'll either attack you or tell you to leave. But if you get high results, if they believe you're a person of high importance, then they will give you gifts, as well as saying that you can pass through their territory and that perhaps they would like to trade with you. They will also sort of bestow gifts upon you. So we will end up with a number between 1 and 7, usually between 1 and 5, and this is the final result. So it's just if z equals 1, they become enraged and attack you. If z equals 2, they tell you to go back the way you came, or you'll have to fight them. 3, they tell you you have to pay or go back the way you came. 4, you can pass through their territory. 5, they can pass through their territory and they'll offer to trade, which is the best result normally. And then these 2 results that only happen for the haughty approach, they present you with gifts and allow you to pass through their territory. So that's sort of a better version of 4. And the final result, which is if you get a 7, they present you with gifts, allow you to pass through their territory and offer to trade. So that's a better version of 5. It doesn't say that z equals 7, but we've got z equals 1, z equals 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the only possible value that it can have is 7. So now, of course, all of these should have more code. If they become enraged and attack you, well, there should be code to decide what happens in that battle. If they tell you to go back the way you came or do battle, you should have the choice of going back the way you came or fighting them, and so on. So none of these in the final game will have just a bit of text, and then that's the end of the game. But again, I was only modelling the interaction, the immediate interaction with the monster, before they sort of decide on a policy or a stance towards you. So, so therefore there isn't code, and adding code to these options is the next thing. So that is my model. As you can see, it results in it can result in a number of possible options. It can result in the loss of particular resources depending on the choices that you make, depending on the attributes that you have. Hopefully it offers slightly more, some interesting choices, some not obvious choices, but I won't know whether it does or not until I have more of the game done and can play the game a lot, and hopefully I'll find that there's no simple strategy that sort of wins every time. But and of course I'd have to send it out for playtesting as well. But that's the model as it is at the moment, and as I add more elements, I will make more videos. So I hope that was interesting or useful to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.